Episode 27 of the Loose and Groovy Baseball Show. If you're just listening to me, then you don't really know it's different. But if you're watching, you can obviously see a big difference. We have somebody filling in for Parker today. It's my twin brother, Kevin, joining the show for the first time. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Just got back from school, home for the weekend, and yeah, playing the role of Parker today. But it got some big shoes to fill. Groovy knows what he's talking about. So yeah, here to just not embarrass myself, pretty much.
Well, it'll be a pretty laid back session. We're just talking about the Brewers today. That is Kevin's favorite team. A very interesting team, too, also. A team that probably isn't talked about as much as it should be, or as much as some of the other, bigger market teams. But I think the Brewers are always one of the more interesting teams to dive into each season. One of the teams that kind of always flies under the radar heading into, divisional rankings in the postseason. So it should be fun to do a deep dive onto a team here today, especially in the middle of the season when there's just so much going on. It'll be good to hone in on this kind of lineup and see what they've got going on so far. So to start us off, I have some trivia for Kevin, test his Brewers knowledge. It's just from the season, so it's all the guys you know,
Okay.
so don't have to
Okay.
worry
I was
about
gonna say if we go beyond like 2 years ago, cooked.
no.
I
Yeah,
got nothing.
you don't got to worry about that. It'll be all right.
Okay.
So what I have for you today is the team WRC Plus leaders. Now, in case those listening don't know what that is, and just for a reminder for Kev, WRC Plus is pretty much the run value created from a player that's also adjusted for the park. So, like for example, if a player was playing like Colorado, they would be a negative effect for them because Colorado is an easier ballpark to hit out of. But the way I think about it is what is your contribution to the team hitting wise? That's a little simpler way to think about it. Like who's hitting well, who's contributing, who's driving in runs, who's producing runs, stuff like that. So I have seven hitters for you that are all qualified to be, or like qualified hitters. So pretty much meaning that Fangraph says, okay, you can look at these stats and like they have enough plate appearances to say, we can justifiably look at this. I will tell you the players just so you don't pick anybody that isn't qualified. So it's a list of seven. We have William Contreras, Churio, Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang, Hoskins, Yelich, and then Joey Ortiz are your seven qualified Brewers hitters. You're
Okay.
gonna have to try and rank them 1 through 7 for WRC plus. And in
Okay.
typical Brewers fashion, this is kind of all over the place. And I know you watch the Brewers, so you'll kind of have a good feeling at who's hitting good. But I
Right.
will tell you not to just assume that the guys you think are at the top are at the top. And that's kind of the one hint I'll give you. So you can start
Yeah.
wherever, you can start top or bottom, and I'll kind of tell you if you're right or wrong. And then if you're wrong, I'll tell you where they're at so I can help you do the other ones.
Okay, so reminder, you said Terrain, Freelick, Yelich, Churio, Ortiz, Hoskins, Contreras, right?
Yes, should
Okay.
be all seven.
Okay. Um, well, I'm guessing because you said like okay, because my first jump it just like it naturally I'm going Freelick Terrain just because they've been like getting on base. Like I think Freelick is 20, I think he has got a 20 game on base streak right now,
Hmm.
but I don't actually know how much he's producing. And kind of same thing with Terrain. Like Terrain probably more so than Freelick. So I'm gonna I'm not gonna put them anywhere, but I know for a fact that Terrain is above Freelick because I think Terang's been probably better in high leverage situations, got a couple more home runs. Um, so Freelick, Mighty Mouse, he's getting to the bag, but I don't like. Okay, so
I would start with 1 or 7. I think that's a good place to start.
yeah,
And you can kind
okay,
of work your way into the middle.
7. I'm gonna put. I think I'm gonna put Ortiz at 7.
You are correct. Joey Ortiz is
Okay.
actually well off a lot of the other guys on this list. He's got a 35
Yeah,
WRC
he's
plus.
he's not doing incredible. He's not like awful, but
How has shortstop been for him defensively? Is he okay
I
there?
haven't seen from what I've been seeing, I've been kind of busy, so I haven't been able to watch a couple games within the last week or so. But I mean, I haven't seen anything that's concerning, and I know we kind of talked about it, but with a middle infield, when you're standing across from Bryce Terrain, like Adames was good, but Adames also wasn't like
Yeah.
he's a good
Oh,
shortstop,
yeah,
but
no.
it's not like he was known for defense.
Right.
He was expected just to be a bat more so. So Ortiz, I feel like definitely not the same kind of bat as Adames, but he's quick and he's used to throwing from like he was third base last year, so he has an arm to get there. I haven't seen anything crazy. And again, I mean, middle infield. Terang Ortiz. I mean, that's pretty solid all the
Yeah.
way across. So I don't know. I haven't seen anything that's concerning to me. Okay. I think, okay. I'm probably, oh man, this is tough. Yelich and Contreras are tough because they had a really rough start, but they both
Yeah.
like since the Colorado series, they both started turning on a little bit more. So
This list is kind of funky. I'm not gonna lie. It was
I'm
not
gonna
what I was
go.
expecting when I looked at it.
Okay, I'm gonna throw. I think I'm gonna try to work my way up. I'm gonna go Hoskins at 6.
No, Hoskins is actually first on this list.
Is he actually
He's got 137 WRC plus, and
really
in that's in 84 plate appearances so far.
first?
Yes.
Let's. Yeah. Okay. Let me look up. I guess he's probably had like he started knocking in some runs. I guess. What's
He's
his?
got 12 RBIs, 3 home runs,
Yeah,
286 average. He's getting on base almost at a 400 clip with some of the other guys too.
that's
Slugging
fair.
also
He's platooning with Bowers right now, so they're putting him in good matchups, which
right.
definitely helps.
That is a big factor here. He's getting the bat when he needs to get the bat. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so a little flip there for, and I mean, I would not have told you that it was Reese Hoskins at one at all, so I'm not surprised that you didn't get that. Okay, so Hoskins one, Ortiz seven, you got the bookends.
Yep.
Frelick, Churio, Yelich, Turang, and Contreras are left.
All right, let's go. Okay. I'm gonna say I'll try free look at 6.
So Frelick is another one of these high guys. He's at three,
Of
actually,
course you.
with a 132 WRC plus. Also, having a very strong start to the season. He's batting
Yeah, free looks.
312, a near 400 on base percentage, even a little bit of slug. He's OPSing above 800 right now. He looks great, and he's almost walking as much as he's striking out. So a very strong start for Frelick here. So he puts you at three. I would go back to what you were thinking earlier with him and the other guy you were talking about.
Okay, so then I would say terrain 2.
Yes, Turang is at
Okay.
number two. He's got a
All right.
135 WRC plus. Another guy who, during our second base rankings, I think Parker had him on his list. I did not. But we were kind of saying, the stolen bases, the defense. I think, yeah, he was the NL Platinum Glove, stole 50 bases last year, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
And we were kind of just saying, if he's an above average bat, he's going to be one of the better second basemen this season. And so far, that's exactly what he's been. 346
Yeah.
average, getting on base quite a bit as well, not striking out a lot. And he's got 3 home runs. So not bad at all. Okay. So you got three players left, kind of the superstars of the team, I guess you would say, for the common
Yeah.
fan. Yelich, Contreras, and Churio. You got to rank them 4 through 6.
Mm, okay. I think Churio's lower. I was looking, I'm not looking at it now, but I did look at his Savant right before this, and everything was pretty average. And he's not been doing terrible, but like,
I'll just tell you, he's got a 101 WRC plus, and that's like the average is 100. So you're
yeah,
pretty much spot on. He's been average so far.
it's probably cheating because I didn't hear what you said Ortiz was at. That'd probably be cheating. Um, all right. I think Churio's got to be lower than both of them, so I'm probably gonna put Churio at 6.
So I kind of just missed this, but him and Contreras are actually tied at 101.
Okay.
So I'll
Is
just
Yelich above them?
yes, Yelich is above them. So you
Okay.
got that right, pretty much.
Okay.
So
So it's
yeah,
Yelich and then Churio Contreras tied
yeah,
kind of 5-6.
yeah.
Okay.
And I will say there's so Hoskins, Turang, Frelick are all in the 130s, and then it's Yelich, Trio, Contreras all within like the 100 110, and then there's Ortiz down at 35. But there definitely is some segments here. And then I also just wanted to shout out like some of the other guys that, don't haven't qualified yet, but like Jake Bowers has got a 145 WRC plus and 33 plate appearances. I guess that might be like the only guy I would probably give a shout to. Maybe
Yeah,
Caleb Durbin, but he's barely been up. So, I mean, I don't really want to say that either yet. But
no. Yeah, I don't think Durbin third base is weak right now. I mean,
he's
Durbin,
ranked third.
so they were. So it was Capra. and Dunn platooning third.
Mm.
They sent Dunn back and got Durbin up. They called Durbin up. And so I think technically he's still platooning with Capra, but as far as I can tell, they've been going with Durbin a lot more since they called him up. Like I've only seen Capra be in the lineup a couple times.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I like let's see, I'm trying to think. Okay, Haas, Capra, and yeah, Haas and Capra do pretty similar things for me. Like
Mm.
they're both like, they have their moments, but if I see either one of them coming up and it's like a high leverage situation, I have little confidence in them.
As I say,
Collins, he had a couple good at bats early in the season. Nothing really notable beyond that, but
yeah.
he had a couple like early series, he had a couple bats that just kept the game moving, I feel like. But
I was
I
looking
mean,
at the numbers. So Capra's got a negative 15 WRC plus, which I you don't see negative a lot, but when it's early like this and you don't have a lot of plate appearances, that's usually how it goes with guys that aren't performing. Collins has got a 45. Haas has got a 136 actually, which is pretty all right. I think his OPS, yeah, in the 700 as well. So it's kind of like Brewers fashion, like plug and play a lot of different guys, and a lot of the
yeah.
guys you probably aren't going to recognize a lot of these names that we're saying too, but that's kind of just Brewers baseball for you. So I wanted to, I mean, we've already kind of started to dove into the team itself, but I want to kind of get your read on the Brewers season so far and like kind of what you've seen and like what you're noticing and like kind of vibes for this, first 25, 26 games or so. So they're 13 and 13. That's currently second in the NL Central. They're 3 games behind the first place Cubs. They also have the Reds, who are right behind them, only a half game back. The Cardinals are 2.5 games back, and then the Pirates are 3 games back. So kind of, sitting in second, but there's a couple teams right behind them. Fangraphs has them right now at a 29.7% chance to make the playoffs. We'll talk a little bit about that later with the NL and how hard it is going to be for the Brewers if they
Dude,
want to be a wild card team. The path to the playoffs is probably to win this division for them. So we'll talk a bit about
100%.
that later. But also looking at their numbers for team, they're hitting not too bad, 11th in team average, 18th in team OPS. The starting pitching has been definitely the bright spot for Milwaukee so far this season. They're fifth in
Mhm.
team ERA. However, the bullpen has definitely been one of their struggles so far, 28th in team ERA so far. So, with that being said, with the Brewers and where they're at now, like what are you thinking? What's your confidence level? What are you liking? What are you not liking? All that good stuff.
So I think I was kind of talking to you about this yesterday. Contrary to last season where the bullpen was the only thing I felt really keeping us like we had Peralta in there. But beyond Peralta early last season, like starting pitching was low. And the bullpen was really what was kind of, I feel like, keeping us in.
Hmm.
Um, so now this season, it's kind of it's like a bittersweet thing a little bit because like I'm glad that our starting pitching is so good. I was just I mentioned this, yikes, I mentioned this kind of a couple of weeks ago, and then writing down, like we have Peralta, Quintana, both vets, Quintana maybe more so than Peralta, but they've been dealing,
Yeah.
and like full confidence every time. Peralta still scares me a little bit sometimes. I think sometimes
Really?
his command looks a little like there's something about his fastball that sometimes just looks super hittable.
Yeah.
Um, but numbers wise and strikeout wise, he's been doing fine this season. So, um, I really not concerned. Quintana, I've been liking what he's been throwing out.
Yeah.
But then, the crazy part is, you have the names like you got Chad Patrick, you got Quinn Priester. Priester was a good pick. Quintana too. Great pickup, by the way, for Quintana. I didn't really mention that. That was crazy that we were able to get him.
Right.
Priester, another good one. And then Chad Patrick, who like had his first appearance in New York when we were getting just murdered, basically. Kind of a rough way to start, but since then, like he's been doing really well. Um, and so I feel like last year, it's kind of a similar vibe because last year, like if you looked at their bullpen, you probably like none of the like bigger names, short of Devin Williams,
Right.
not a lot of big names in the bullpen last year. And our bullpen hasn't changed all that much. But now I feel like you're seeing that starting pitching where it's like couple guys that like just don't get mentioned or talked about, and they're out here with, decent ERAs.
Yeah, right.
They're not like, I mean, they're going out and they're throwing good, solid couple innings. I know like all this last series at in San Fran, like we lost 3-1, but I think we started with a lead in all of those games. And like so clearly, little more of a bullpen issue, and especially for the way that the Brewers play, like they're not the most offensively powerful team or dominant. When you play like you play the A's last week, Brewers ball and A's defense, talk about like good pairing for us, where just constantly putting pressure on them. Um, but when you're facing like a solid team, sometimes the plucky attitudes can only get you so far, and it's
Right.
good for a couple runs a game. But if we have Peralta going in and throwing a solid couple innings, and our bullpen can't keep that on lock, I feel like the later game, we get a couple good bats. We get we get Terang, Frelick, we get a couple of guys on base. I just feel like there's not a lot of good um game-changing bats is probably what I'd say. Like there's a lot of run producing on this team and like manufacturing. So it's like, yeah, you can get a home run. Like Yelich had a grand slam the other day. That does not happen that often. Like
Yeah.
it is a constant, like we are just going single, double, drive guys in. It's almost never let's load the bags up and just have someone go yard. Um,
Well, and especially when we were looking at it now with Terang and Frelick being like two of your top hitters, like those guys are
yeah,
not slugging guys. And I also just looked
no,
it up. Milwaukee is 13th in team OBP so far this season, and then they're 23rd in slug. So like exactly what you were saying with like, getting on base, getting those runs in, and relying less on the power from other guys. But at the same time, it is pretty like I know they're 500, but I would say like the fact that Churio and Contreras and Yelich haven't probably been what you were expecting so far.
yeah,
Like those are the guys that you're going to probably count on more for your slug, and I guess Reese Hoskins too, who's looked great so far in his platoon opportunities. But like, Churio finished with 20 home runs last year. Yelich we know has probably got 25, 30 in him still, and then Contreras I would probably count on 20, 25 pretty consistently. And so that's kind of where you're looking to get the slug, but then you also have the complementary pieces all over the field, really, to be honest with you, with the speed and the defense and like the on base percentage. There's a lot of different guys you could point to and say, yeah, that's kind of like what the Brewers do. I did also want to mention Peralta's kind of like, for me, is one of like the more underrated pitchers in the league, I want
Mhm.
to say. And I would just say that purely off of his reliability for this team. Like he's started like 30 games the past two seasons. And that's to the tune of a 3.6 and a 3.8 the past two seasons, respectfully. 165, 173 innings. And it looks like he's going to put in another season like that, over 200 strikeouts again, probably. And the stuff is pretty good. Like I know you were talking about the fastball, it's a little flat. I get that. It's probably fastball changeup for the most part, and then that curve and slider he uses every so often too. But like in terms of dependability, you're not going to find many other guys like a Freddie Peralta where the health is there, consistency is there, and it's pretty good consistency too. So I wanted to give a quick shout to him because I think having him at the front and like, being, I would say kind of like, I wouldn't say he's an ace of a pitcher, but being the ace of this staff has definitely been one of the more underrated parts of this Brewers team, I think, for the past couple seasons.
I agree. I think and the conversation like last year, I feel like he was kind of our ace by default. Lo we lost Burns, Woodruff out injury.
Right.
So it
Right.
was kind of, Peralta kind of went from a three guy to the ace really quickly, at least in like his spot in the rotation. And what I will say is I do think he's grown into that a lot more to the point now where like Woodruff come like okay, if you told me last year Woodruff came back halfway through the season, I would have probably told you it would have been Woodruff Peralta 1-2. Like obviously pending Woodruff like goes back to normal. This season I would not be surprised if they keep Peralta at the ace, and it obviously like he's done I think he's earned that pretty
Hmm.
well. And like you were saying, like he goes out and he'll get us innings. Like it's yeah, I think he can get he had what you said, 3.8, 3.6.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I don't see Peralta go scoreless a lot of the times, but I also don't see him get lit up all that often.
No.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's a pretty consistent, he goes out of the game, there's 1, 2 runs on the board.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yep.
never, even in the Yankees series, his game, we lost that game, but compared to the next day, Cortez got lit up on the first 3 pitches. So, you
Mhm.
know, Peralta's facing the same lineup, and we didn't win the game, but he also didn't let up that many runs. So yeah, you're right. Like definitely a steady pitcher, which I think we need. And like and it's consistent. You're right. Like right now, like starting rotation has been really, really good.
Yeah.
That's usual for Peralta. He's pitching as normal. You look at like Chad Patrick, Priester, like not as much have been seen of them, so it's possible you see that fall off a little bit. But in terms of, when you have Peralta and Quintana, who this is just what they do, and this is what they've been doing for the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons, like that is definitely increases my confidence starting rotation when it's not like, yeah, you got a couple of those upstarts that can go in and start lighting things up and keep things exciting, but having 2 veteran anchors kind of in there and Woodruff on the way, that is definitely helpful,
When?
especially for a team where last year at the deadline everyone's like, please get starting pitching.
Yeah.
We need
When's he back? Do you know?
he started his rehab assignment like a couple weeks ago. So
So
I
soon.
don't last time I heard was like a mid May estimate.
Okay.
And if he's starting rehab, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Um,
It is
but
kind
yeah,
of, it's crazy. Like, we haven't mentioned this. Like, we've been talking about the good rotation. The amount
mhm.
of guys on the injured list, too, is like insane. Like, we've been
Oh,
talking about Woodruff, and then there's Ashby Savali Cortez also on that list, too. And like,
yeah, Cortez just got moved to, dude.
yeah,
I got so mad because Cortez, he had a great comeback game after getting lit up by the Yankees. Went out and just he was dealing and then got put on 15-day IL and then just got moved to 60,
yeah,
which hurts. Uh, but again, if this was last season, that'd be a lot more concerning. This season, we have a little bit more room and a couple more solid guys that can kind of fill that space in. And we were talking about the bullpen also. Like I kind of mentioned how bullpen's pretty much the same. Couple new guys in there for sure. We just called up Yoho. Hopefully he can live up to all the hype.
yeah.
But we got guys like McGill, Koenig, Uribe, Piamps. Like all those guys are Brewers guys and have been for a while. And
It's-
like Piamps is not off to a great start. But
Well,
he's
so I also wanted to throw in, I know we kind of said the bullpen's not been great, but I think it might still be slightly inflated from that Yankee series where everything was
that's
out of the park. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, correct. Numbers wise for sure inflated, but also even if you're looking at the most recent series, like there's definitely less of a reliability than there was probably last year.
right.
Um, But to that point though, I think I was just listening to Euron Parker's episode last week, and I feel like this is what I'm figuring out, or like the theme is, especially early season, and not that this is revolutionary, but it's like what's out of character and what's going to be reliable moving forward. Like, you know, it's it sucks seeing lower numbers, but again, these are all guys that have been Brewers bullpen, and
Right.
like, you look at end of May, post like All-Star break, like it's not it wouldn't surprise me if the bullpen starts firing it up again. You get Yoho in there, you get Ashby starting, sorry, but um like if you get a couple like I don't think it's gonna take much for them to get fired back up again,
The
I
Brewers
would
are one of
say.
those teams where like I kind of think they fall in the same category as the Rays, where it's a pitching lab, and even if you don't know the names, you know they're going to be good, right?
Mhm.
And I would also immediately point to Shane Smith of the White Sox. He was the first pick in the Rule 5 draft this year for the White Sox from the Brewers system, and he's
Mm.
been our best starting pitcher this year. And I know he's a starting pitching, but like to speak to the credibility of what the Brewers do with pitchers, the fact that he was on that team and they chose not to protect him because of all the other guys they have, and now seeing him
Right.
doing on a different team, I think says a lot to the Brewers and what they do with pitchers over there. And I think also what they're doing right now with starting pitching and seeing the dependability on a lot of these different arms where you're pretty thin, but you're still running out guys that are very solid. Again, speaks to what the Brewers can do with pitching and how they like to organize things. Um,
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. I'm not too concerned about it, despite like the gross looking numbers so far. I
Yeah.
think some of that is Yankee Stadium, but also it's still the start. It's only April 25th, so it's not like
Right.
it's very early.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's definitely, I don't think, yeah, I think bullpen can definitely get itself together. And then, you get bullpen going back to at least a regular performance. You get Woodruff back. All of a sudden, Brewers pitching rotation is back to being, one of the most solid,
Hmm.
like just across the board, good staff, like pretty reliable. So, you
Yes.
know, I feel like, and we'll probably get into this like when we talk about later season down the road, but it's, I feel like the pieces are there. Like there's been some underperformance, and like you were saying, Churio, Contreras, Yelich, they're all kind of starting to heat up. And Churio, maybe not so much, but like Contreras has really been starting to heat up. He had a really rough start to the season, but those are three guys that, like you were saying, they still have, high production in them, even if we're not seeing it right now. So, if we have our guys like Terang Frelick staying consistent, you get those veteran bats and the pop coming from those guys. You get everything. I feel like if everything lines up, the pieces are for sure there. Like
Yeah.
it's just a matter of getting everything kind of to where it can be. And you can say that for a lot of teams for sure.
Right.
But yeah, I think like the pieces are there for sure.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you more about that later because that is where I get more concerned is when you match them up with other teams in the National League. It
Yeah,
it gets a little scary when you do that, especially with the like yes, the Brewers, I think they made the postseason like six of the last 7 years or something like
yeah,
that. That's kind of been going around. But at the same time, I don't think they've made it to a championship series in any of those seasons. Uh, I
I
could
don't
be
think so.
I could be wrong, but if they have, it's probably like one. But for the most part, it's a wild card exit or a division series exit. And this is the thing when you do what the Brewers do and you kind of scrape by and like it's good for the regular season, but it isn't great for the postseason. And we can kind of save that for later. But that's just kind of my initial thoughts on that. I did want to talk about Tyler Alexander. So I know the numbers aren't going to jump off the page, and you're kind of smirking there too. And I know he's not great. Over the past couple seasons, the ERA has not been like so. His best year was 2021, probably in Detroit. He had a 3.81. And then coming off of last year, his final season with the Rays, or I guess he was in Detroit, got moved to the Rays last season, had a 5.10. But I think what I like about him so much is I like the numbers are not great. He's going to let up some runs, but he can give you a start if you need it. And I think that for the Brewers right now, that's extremely valuable. He's already had 3 starts in the season. Has he come out of the bullpen yet, or have they just used him in starts so
He was
far?
in. He came out of the bullpen yesterday. I'm pretty sure we started Myers against the Giants, and then that's kind of why I was smirking is because I clicked it on and I clicked it on like right as he like I think he load. No, let's see. Yeah, I think he loaded the bags up and then we took him out and then it was the Yelich error.
Okay.
So that's why I'm smirking. It's because I was watching, I was like it was a bad moment to click it on. And I think he had like a good inning or two before I clicked it on. But um yeah, I mean, let's see. Like I'm looking at his numbers now.
I
I
guess
mean,
my point is having this kind of wild card where he can give you a start and give you 4 or 5, okay innings, but he can also come out of the bullpen if you don't get a great start from your starter and give you a
mhm.
couple of innings in relief where, yeah, maybe it won't be the best. He might let up, he might kind of get shelled. I mean, maybe not shelled, but even if you let up like, let's say he goes 3 or 4 innings in relief, lets up 2 runs. I think you're going to take that if you're Milwaukee. And I think he fits into this fold very well, even if the numbers don't show that so well. If you get what I'm saying.
I know what you mean. Yeah, and I think there's a couple of those guys that can kind of float in between, honestly.
Doesn't Painted get starts sometimes, or he did last year?
Koenig will get in there. McGill's our closer, so not him, but hmm. McGill, he can. I forgot what game I was watching. I think I was watching with my roommate, and I was just watching him pitch, and I'm like, yeah, like I think it was,
Throws
might
the
have
ball
been
hard.
Tigers game, and we were up so many runs it didn't matter,
Yeah.
but like it was just kind of like I'm imagining that in high leverage, and I'm like, no, no, no. So that's a separate thing. But yeah, like Kanan can get issue. Like this is a bullpen that like I feel like when they have like a bullpen game, I don't feel like anyone feels out of place necessarily, when they have a bullpen game. I feel like everybody isn't uh isn't too bad if they need to trot them out for a bullpen game, go get 3 innings to start. And you're right, like Alexander's definitely been floating, especially, for these last couple of weeks. Um, but yeah, you're right. Like right now, I think he's pretty comfortably in the bullpen though, because we just got Myers back.
Yeah,
So
right.
I think unless we get like some other injury, I don't.
But
He'll
yeah, it's
probably
like
stay.
it's like that spot start situation where like, uh-oh, somebody went down again, and we need like we're
Right.
kind of out of our order. We need just need somebody to go out there and throw a couple innings. Tyler Alexander, go and do it. Like, and I think
Right.
it's perfect for what it is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. But
So,
um,
do you have anything else on the team in general? Any more thoughts, I guess? Something
um,
that's just standing out or a specific player?
Um, let's see. I kind of mentioned Chad Patrick.
Yep.
So I got into that. And we've talked about Terang. I still want to give Terang some flowers. I mean, talk about like you were saying, like, he wasn't even on your second base rankings, which is
Mhm.
fair because offensively, kind of just
Bad.
yeah. I mean,
Slightly below average.
he
I'll
get
give you.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you look at your platinum glove like for second base last year. So you're absolutely right where you're, going into this year. That was probably fair to leave him off. I probably would have said, defense alone probably can
Yeah.
sneak him in there. But
Yes.
below average hitting, you can definitely make the argument like, hey, there's just too many good second basemen that can do both. But I mean, and I don't know that anybody could have predicted how good he was going to be going into the season, and we'll see how sustainable that is. Um, 3 home runs, not bad, like a little bit of pop there, but like that average makes total sense to me. And like when you see him go up to the plate, he's really good about digging after balls. Like there's some there's something I just like I tie it to his bat for some reason. I don't think that maybe has something to do with it, but it's so funny because he's got like the knob on the bottom of the bat
Oh,
and
yeah,
he
right.
will dig after so many balls. Like he will protect really well, just stick the bat out and then he'll just get bloop singles over that infield. Um, and with him and with a lot of these Brewers, especially Durbin fits right in the team really well.
Yep.
His first hit was like just a Mickey Mouse ground ball that he just sprinted out the first base line. So,
Yeah.
with Terang, with a lot of these guys, it's the, Brewers are one of the only teams where our lack of slugging like doesn't it hurts at some points, but also it complements the way that they play well. And I think like Brewers ball at its absolute finest is really fun to watch. That's part of the reason I like the team. And it's not like I think I started watching like 3-ish years ago. And it wasn't necessarily because of that, but I also just love watching Brewers games. When they're on and just watching them I mean, it's got to be frustrating. I remember I was watching the A's game the other day and it was like I would get so overwhelmed so fast. He was like they just got a couple base knocks. There was like some sort of error, I think, and they just take so many bags. It was Langoliers was catching, couldn't
Mm,
throw anybody out at second,
yeah.
and then the pitcher balked, and then we like it was just literally like getting swarmed pretty much. It was
Mm,
all it was is singles and doubles, and they just keep running and taking bags. That was a game that we set like franchise record. I think we got 9 bags that game. Terang had 3 within like because he stole 2, and
mm.
then his next at bat he stole another one. Um, so yeah, like stolen bags for sure. Like Terang's on my fantasy team, great fantasy point producer.
Yeah,
Um,
so I was just looking at his splits because I remember I forgot if it was in a game we were watching or if you told me, but do they still do the thing where if it's against a righty, he's at the top, and if it's against lefty, he's at
yeah.
the bottom? So
Yeah, so beginning of the season, he was hitting 9 almost at like we faced so many lefties to start the
yeah.
season. So he was hitting 9 a lot of the times. I think that's balanced out a little bit, but yeah, he'll lead off if it's a righty. If it's a lefty, he plays the 9 spot.
So against righties, his slash is 377, 429, 509 for a 937 OPS. So you're seeing the power from him come against righties, but even against lefties, he's still hitting 302 against them. So you're
Yeah.
still seeing the bat, help him get on base, 318 OBP. Not walking a lot, but the bat is getting him singles and stuff. And the OPS is 690 against lefties. But when you're seeing the power come from at least one of the sides, and it's the side he's really good at, I'm not going to be too upset against that. He definitely struggles more against lefties, but it's still good enough to where he can play every day and still be a valuable bat every day and a valuable player every day.
Well, that's the thing too. Yeah, like we don't need to go. He doesn't need to go hit home runs against, the lefties, but if he can go stick the bat out there and lay a couple bunts down, like that's great that we can just keep him in the lineup. Especially just because like there's not a lot of room to keep platooning. Like, Terrain, he kind of has to play. Like you look at some of the outfield guys like um Mitchell, he's just not even in the lineup. Like he's just not even in the lineup sometimes. But with we are kind of platooning first and third and like kind of that center field spot right now a little bit too. But that usually goes with DHing. Like it's usually some combination of Yelich, Frelick, Mitchell, Churio. Three of them are out there. One of them's DHing is usually how it goes. And so, you kind of run out of room to keep platooning. And so if Terang isn't producing on that left-hand side, then we have a real issue.
Yeah.
Because there's just not room. Because then, you platoon with him, and then, it's kind of tough because then you have to worry about Hoskins versus righties or Bowers versus lefties. Like compared to Bowers, I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure Bowers lefty splits are just not as good. Um,
I'll pull him up for you.
and like same goes for Hoskins. Like Hoskins doesn't hit righties well, but like that's more of a spot where the platooning is a little bit necessary. So it's nice that Terrain can go out and produce, yeah, less, but still something substantial to the point where we can focus on getting good matchup at other positions on the field.
So is it a Hoskins Bowers platoon at first?
Yeah,
Okay, so well, he only has three plate appearances against lefties. He doesn't have a hit against them. But
yeah, that makes sense.
against righties, he's great. 296, 367, 556 slug, and a 923 OPS. He's got two home runs from that side. So I mean, we already talked about Reese and how good he's doing. So I think you're pretty happy with that so far.
No, I mean, yeah, platooning between him and Reese at first, like that's a great platoon spot. Like,
Yeah.
and Bowers, you're right. Bowers is doing good, and like you can see, like three at bats. Like he's not. It's just not. It's nice that we have the room, we have the flexibility at other spots, so that we can focus a good platoon bat and really like taking two guys that can't hit win good matchups. You know, kind of you stick Bowers against a lefty or Reese against a righty, kind of get dead in the water a little bit. Um, and that's probably where you start to see the bench and maybe some of the depth issues become a little bit more prevalent is, you know, we're platooning a couple of these guys. Other team puts in, a opposite-handed reliever, and then, our bench consists of it's Haas, Bowers, Capra, Collins. So whoever's not platooning that day.
Right.
So, we can get a couple, but like we usually have a couple at bats where people are just in a bad matchup. Um, and it's just not, we don't have a lot of like great bench bats just sitting there waiting to, pinch hit. Um, yeah, pinch running is more, but I mean, in pinch running, not even because everyone can run. Hoskins is
Yeah.
probably one of the slower guys on the team. Um, but yeah, like
Per
Perkins is out, but Perkins usually we'll see what I'm interested to see what they do when Perkins gets healthy because, like I said, I mean Mitchell outfield, you're not taking sure you're not like I don't know who's if someone's gonna get called down. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if let's see, does Isaac Collins have a couple options? Yeah, that would maybe be my guess. Is um I don't know. We'll have to see what happens when Perkins gets healthy.
So yeah, I did want to bring him up because he's kind of he fits the Brewers mold very well, and the fact that he's been out, I
Yeah.
think hurts a little bit. But Garrett Mitchell's been, I think I heard the other day he's either leading the league in defensive run saves for center fielders or some defensive stat where he's doing very well. And that he's providing value that way. So kind of like a Perkins, but even Perkins bat last year, I don't want to say it was like awful, but I know it wasn't probably great. So I kind of want to. Do you have something else?
I was just looking at Mitchell's numbers. Yeah, him and Perkins both in center field play great defense. I know we went out to a couple of games last year. I mean, we watched Perkins like just he saved like multiple runs,
Yeah, yeah, I do remember that.
So him and Mitchell both do really good and they provide a decent amount of value out defense. So even if you can get like a little bit of run production, it's still kind of worthwhile keeping them around just for the speed and for center field. But you can go on with what you were saying.
I just wanted to move us on to talking about the division. And I guess the conversation is mainly going to be probably with the Cubs.
Hmm.
Because I think you'd probably agree. I think the Brewers are better than the Reds, Cardinals, and the Pirates. And this is always
Yeah,
it,
I
it seems with the NL Central where like it's like a lot of these teams just kind of like to hover around 500. Brewers are normally on the positive end of that, while I would say the other three are more probably on the negative recent years.
yeah.
But so I guess we can keep this between the Cubs and the Brewers. And I'll start by saying the Cubs, to me, watching their game so far, and I've talked to you about this and Parker, um, the Cubs offense is, and I know the Brewers offense has been good, but they're outpacing a lot of teams in the league, not even just in the NL Central when it comes to offense. And that is where I get really concerned with the Brewers and like in this division and for the postseason. Um, I, the Cubs just have this star power and have this, and I guess the star power is now just really in Kyle Tucker, who's been, one of the best hitters so far this year. But what I need to see from the Brewers to kind of get that faith is I need to see Yelich go back to any version of 2019 or 2018 Yelich, whatever year it was. I need William to go back to what he did last year. And I want Jackson Churio to be something like he was in that second half last year. If they're gonna sit with these other kind of Brewers players and be like these kind of fun, like all over the place guys that, they're gonna cause you trouble, but they're not really gonna give you that oomph in the lineup. I don't see really a path to the playoffs for the Brewers, and I think this division is gonna belong to the Cubs. And the Cubs, I honestly think, could run away with it by the end of May if something doesn't change here. I know it's only 3 games and it's such a long season, but with the way the Cubs are playing right now, I don't really see it's tough for me right now to see the Brewers like taking hold of this division and holding on to it. So I guess I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I know we've talked with Parker a little bit about Cubs offense for sure. I mean, even if you just go back and you look at like some of their last games, they like if you if you're a fan of the MLB, like you've definitely heard about just the insane games that they've been having. Dodgers 11-10, they 7-6. There's a
Hmm.
Diamondbacks loss 3-2 in there, which is like kind of out of character for these games because
Yeah.
you go back a week or two, you have the 16-0 Dodgers blowout. They just got 2 wins against the Dodgers, 11-7. Like they're producing runs, and that's not something that you're going to get from the Brewers. I think again, like the question is probably like the sustainability but like I think at any level you might not keep seeing these 13 run games, but you're right. I think pound for pound have more of that power hitting and more of the run production from the Cubs. I really think deadline is probably going to be telling, especially what scares me, I would say, is the fact that like everyone says, "Oh, Cubs been, just not doing amazing things," and if they keep outpacing everyone runs, that's fine. But if you see those runs drop and you don't have pitchers in the bullpen, that's an issue.
Hmm.
Cubs probably can go get a couple bullpen arms at the deadline.
So that
Brewers,
I will throw in really quick. The argument for the deadline, I think definitely favors the Cubs, and I'm sure that's what you're
that's
going.
what I'm
Yeah.
gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, like. because yeah, you can absolutely say, okay, well, if you're looking at needs at the deadline, uh, let's say Brewers pitching staff keeps lighting up, and we stay somewhere. Let's say Yelich and Contreras and Churio get somewhere around. I think even then, especially this year, last year, I think with how everyone was playing, easy to get in the playoffs. Cubs were meh. This year, though, even with solid performances from those three, I think like my personal pick would be to grab like a bat at the deadline, like see what kind of guys are out on the market. And I don't know what that looks like yet this year, but
Yeah.
um, if there's a good bat on the market, like that's something that I think the team probably would need is some shot of just pop because you keep everybody, let's say Terrain keeps us going, and then you get Brewers ball, like prime Brewers ball, but then you have like, okay, not that these guys are available at the deadline, but like even if you just pick out some of the power guys like in the league, like let's say for instance, just Trout's on the Brewers. Not that that's happening,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you get a guy like Trout who like that is a bat.
Right.
Like
I get what you're
all of
saying.
a sudden you pair the Brewers ball with okay, we just got three guys on base by a couple bunts and scrappy play and Trout's out to bat. Like that changes the dynamic of the offense a lot. Instead of okay, we just got three guys on base. Here's Frelick. He's gonna lay down a bunt and we'll get like one, maybe two of those runs in.
Right.
Um, so yeah, deadline conversation then definitely favors the Cubs because the Brewers don't like to do much. Like last year, we could have gotten a good starting arm, and we got Frankie Montas, which doesn't he's all right, but
Yeah.
like at
Yeah.
a deadline where we needed someone that could probably give Peralta a run for his ace spot, Frankie Montas doesn't do a ton. So again, I think it's going to come down to how sustainable like the Cubs offense is. And you're right, how much like Churio, Yelich, Contreras can start playing. If those guys can all play like to their ceiling,
Yeah, so that's the other thing is you could easily just say like, oh well, they're not going to be this like I mean they're not bad, but like they're going to turn around this season, they're going to be good, they're going to be really good, and then you could say, well, the Brewers have their stars. Like there's a big three right
right?
there where they're when they're at their best, they're some of the best hitters in the league, you could probably argue. And so then you're
Right.
like okay, is it even worth it to trade some pieces away? I would still say it is, especially if you're going to be competing with the Cubs. And then we'll talk later about the wild card picture too in that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, you could easily just say like, oh, well, I think Yelich, as long as he stays healthy, will probably deliver some of that power. And Contreras, he had a really slow start. He's starting to pick it up again. And same with Churio. He's still very young, still very like a raw talent. And, we'll see if he can do what he did last year at the end of the season. I'm not gonna like say yes or no, he can't, but like it is easy to have this conversation where you get concerned about what's on this team, but at the same time, you have to remember there are pieces here where they can make this work, and we've seen them make it work in the past.
Yeah, I think again, like you were saying, like they can make it work absolutely, but this is a year where like it's doubtful that that's going to be enough, or at least that's
Yeah.
more in question. Last 2 years, NL Central is not a power division, so all you
And
got
it
to do
still
is
really isn't. Like I know the Cubs are better this year, but
yeah,
it still
correct.
isn't.
Cubs,
Yeah.
like no one, I feel like last couple of years we get a couple like good series with the Cubs where we can just rake in those wins, and all of a sudden Cubs kind of fell out of the picture quickly. This year, when those Cubs Brewer series comes around, that's probably going to be pretty telling, and those could hurt if we aren't able to
Yeah.
go in there and do something about that. So, um, yeah, and again, you mentioned like the wild card spot. Like I think I was joking with Parker the other day because the Brewers were like almost about we're not anymore, but we were pretty much square with the Tigers in records. At that point, Tigers were third in the AL and Brewers were like eighth.
Hmm.
Uh, right now, Tigers are 15 and 10 and tied with the Yankees for leading the AL. Brewers are, I think, like 3 games back, two and a half maybe,
Of the
and we're
Cubs
sitting
or the
of like
top record.
15-10. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
for we're I mean, we beat the Tigers in the series. I'm not saying that that's like guaranteed we're the better team, but if you're looking pound for pound across the league teams, like Brewers and Tigers are pretty comparable, depending on where they're at, like play
Yes.
wise.
Yes.
Record wise, both very different play styles, but record wise, like and me and Parker, we have our little season competition, right? Because they're both pretty like you sit beginning of the season, you look at the two teams and you're like, okay, these are two middle of the pack, like can either play really well or maybe they're gonna fall off. So it makes it like a pretty good competition just to see who's gonna have the better record. So as a Brewers fan in the NL, it's a little frustrating seeing that like, we bring this kind of thing to the AL. That's more of a wild card conversation for sure. Um, you got teams like I mean, it's just I mean, Royals like 12, 14. I mean, we'd be sitting in with like Angels, Red Sox, Astros right now, kind of ish.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that area. Like Angels are 500, we're 500. So I guess okay, so right now we would be middle of the pack, I guess, in either league. But if you guys last time I was listening to it today, so that's why I'm bringing this up. You guys were talking about like who are the powerhouses that you don't want to face in the playoffs. And we have Mets, Padres, Giants, Dodgers, and we get to face like we're going to face one of them if we make it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who gets by. We got to face one of those guys. Um, and and then there's Cubs, Diamondbacks. Like, I mean, literally, okay. I just looking. Okay, we're number 8 right now, and the teams ahead of us are the Mets, Padres, Giants, Dodgers, Cubs, Diamondback, Phillies.
Yeah. So we've kind of transitioned to this conversation I wanted to have with you perfectly. Where like the NL is just like this barnstorm of amazing teams. Where like if you look at like let's say like the league ended today, division winners, it's Padres, Cubs, Mets, they all get a spot. And then the wild card, you would take I think it would be all three teams in the NL West that would get those three wild card spots. Giants, Dodgers, Diamondbacks take it. Um,
Um, yeah, right now it would be Giants, Dodgers, Diamondbacks,
So now,
and
from the
then
Brewers' perspective, you're pretty much competing with the most stacked division in the league. And then you
yeah,
also can't forget about second place in the NL East, whether that's the Mets or the Phillies, maybe even the Braves if they keep playing well and get back. That to me, that gets me very concerned. And this is what I said at the start of the season. I think I remember telling you, like, hey, dude, like looking at this NL, like if you guys don't win the division, it is going to be really tough for you guys to get into the playoffs. And that's kind of the thing with the Central that has been the past couple of years where it's the division winner and nobody else. And that's just kind of what
yeah,
it is. But to your point with the AL, they would probably be one of the top teams in the American League right now if they were just in a different league, or on that side. And that's just kind
right,
of the weird part about this whole situation where the American League just is nowhere near as strong as the NL is right now, and they would easily be fighting for a wild card spot if the Central was like flipped or whatever and stuff like that.
right. Yeah, I think like even we're lucky enough to not be is that the East with Dodgers and Giants and that whole division and Padres? That's NL East, right?
NL West.
NL West. Yeah, sorry, I knew that. Like we're lucky enough to not be in that division. But we're still gonna have to face those teams a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, we just had a 4-game series, Giants, Athletics before that, Tigers before. Like, I don't know. It's tough because you look at some of these teams that we have to face during the season, and it's just like, hmm. Um, so yeah, it'd be nice to be in a division where we could rack up a couple wins, but I mean, it's tough. Like I think the Cubs Dodgers series is probably a really good example of there. It would be really hard to convince me that the Brewers could go put up 16 runs against the Dodgers. Maybe we catch a no. Maybe we can
Yeah.
shut them out. Maybe our pitching staff lights it up. But even if we beat the Dodgers in a shutout, we're talking like a 5, 6 run game. We're
Yeah.
not putting up 16 in almost any circumstance, I feel like. Um, so yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter really how division winners shake up. I mean, and even if we're the division winners, we still like that's still going to be another hard year to get out of the wild card. And I know like my other buddy, he was talking about he didn't have Brewers predicted in the playoffs, and I was like, what? No. And that was before season started. And now that I've actually seen the NL Central and what that looks like, I'm like, yeah, no, that
Yeah,
that that
it
probably makes sense.
it's tough.
So I would say again, deadline is gonna matter. I'm going in this year extremely cautious. I don't expect any. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna expect the Brewers to just do absolutely nothing, so that in the event that they actually do something, I can be happy. But um, I mean, I would say the most likely shot we have is if we can just kind of tail the Cubs all season. And then I think we just gotta hope like, hey, we catch like like a Tigers level run like they did last season. We
Right.
just get hot all of a sudden. Everyone starts playing at their ceiling, and maybe we can snag a wild card spot and then stun some people. That's probably, I would say, if the Brewers make a run, that would be my guess. I don't think we're gonna pull away middle of the season. It'll probably be, if anything, it's gonna be kind of a slugfest between the Brewers and the Cubs. But again, that depends on if the Cubs level off or not. Um,
And you've kind
so
of already touched on this a bit, but let's say theoretically they get into the postseason. How confident are you matching up against these other NL teams? Because I would say not very confident, probably.
the only reason, yeah, I would say generally yes, like not confident. And if you would look at like betting odds, probably like they'd probably align with that. But again, I would argue it depends on how they get in because, you know, last couple seasons, division winner, everyone's kind of like those games have been like, all right, let's see if you're actually like worthy of even being here. It's kind of so, but if it's a we snag a wild card spot, not being someone not playing with house money, that maybe changes the mindset, and that only goes so far when you're facing
Yeah.
teams like, let's say Dodgers don't get a bye, and we're facing Dodgers first round of the wild card. A plucky attitude and playing with house money will only get you so far. Like we still have to play good baseball,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I would also say, just from momentum standpoint, if you carry that in there, you look at the Brewers who have been like floating around and you catch a streak at the end of the season, like I wouldn't I would say maybe we can go out to Los Angeles and punch them in the mouth a little bit instead of like weirdly, I would be more comfortable with that than snagging a series, like snagging, the NL Central and then having the Dodgers come to Milwaukee. That I would be like, no, we're about to get lit up. Like,
Yeah.
because all the expectation then is Brewers got in here, but they don't actually really deserve to be here. You guys are gonna get lit up by the Dodgers. Um, so again, like you got to still play baseball, but I think like it also depends on if they get to the playoffs theoretically, depending on their path there, that might change the mindset. And if it's again, see this, okay. I would say though, contrary to prior years, if they get to the playoffs, that means they have to be performing.
Yes.
Not that they're not like last year they were fine, but they kind of were able to coast slightly in there. This year, if they get playoffs, that means that they have to be doing something decent.
That's true. That is true.
So, like it's gonna be probably harder to get in, but at the same time,
If they do get in, it's
if they
yeah,
do get in, that means that they probably are doing something right and have maybe a higher chance that
that's
they can steal a couple.
right. That is
Um,
true.
but yeah.
Yeah, it's so like because the Brewers are in like probably one of the most unique. I mean, you can probably make the argument for any team, I guess, but I think the Brewers are in one of the more unique spots in the entire MLB where you have this like pedigree of success now, kind of out of nowhere for the Milwaukee. Um,
Hmm.
and I guess maybe you could say a pedigree of regular season success because you haven't seen that fully transfer over to the postseason. But it is almost this expectation now where Milwaukee is in the postseason. And now you're in a spot where the team is still good. You're still kind of got the same core-ish group of guys, but you have an influx of new wealth youth talent as well. But now you're kind of looking at a different point of view of like, oh shoot, we actually gotta like lock in for lack of better words to like kind of get in. And like I like what you said about like kind of last year, it felt like they took an early lead in that division and kind of coasted their way along without much real competition from the rest of this division. At least that's what it seemed like to me. And now you have
Hmm.
a very worthy threat in the Cubs where, like you're saying, if they do get in the postseason, it probably means that they're doing something right. They're playing probably some of their best baseball they have in the past couple of seasons. And it is going to be a dogfight for them to try and get in because from the stance it looks like right now, it looks like it'll be very tough for them.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, crazy things have happened. But like we said, the pieces are there.
Yeah.
If everything fires at the same time, then it can definitely become more of a conversation. But um,
So if prediction right now, as we're sitting on April 25th, it is the 25th. Um, do the Brewers win the division or counter, do they win a wild card and get into the postseason or do they miss it? What do you think as of right now?
uh, as a fan, I would hope that they sneak in there somewhere. And I still okay. So I'm gonna say objectively, if someone was forcing me to put money on it, I'm probably betting that they're not making it.
Hmm.
If you're telling me, Kevin, place a bet so that you make some money back, I'm probably betting on them not making it.
Yeah.
As a fan, there's still that hope that they can turn something on, and I would probably say my guess would be probably still from a division win.
Mhm.
I think wild card. That's just look. I'm looking at the National League standings right now, and that's just a wall of teams that I don't feel comfortable trying to get through. But if we can get through the Cubs, even like again, it goes back to that. Like if they have a great second half and they go on just a heater at the end of the season, and like I said, if we can trail the Cubs and at least keep them within striking distance, so that when we get to that point, we start getting hot, then a three-game difference can be made up pretty quickly. That is probably the most, I would say, most likely outcome is we keep the Cubs close. Maybe the Cubs level off, and then the Brewers catch a heater at the end of the season and are able to grab a pennant and sneak in there. I think if Cubs win the division, though, it's probably wraps for the Brewers.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with you on that. I picked the Cubs to win this division at the start of the year, and maybe that is playing into my bias a little bit because I want the Cubs to do that. Um, but I like what you were saying with the Dodgers series, I think is very telling. But I also agree with what you said about those Cubs Brewers series when those happen. Those are going to
Hmm.
be, I think, they're going to be much watched baseball for sure. But it's also going to be a very those could be the deciders in this division between these two
Yeah.
teams where, if one of these teams gets like, wins majority of those or like is sweeping those too, that could be that could be the biggest series for any of these teams this entire year because like and I don't want to talk about the Cubs in the highest regard where it's like it's their division to lose pretty much. Like it's only three
Hmm.
games, right? That can change in a weekend series.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, I think looking at the teams comparably, I would still probably lean to the Cubs. But it is still at the point where this can change on the flip of a dime. And we could be talking about the Brewers in June being 5 games ahead of the division. And they kind of have to do similar to what they did last year and just kind of, play their game and then get into the playoffs and they're in. And that could very well happen again. But it could also be a,
Yeah.
a situation like you said, where they got to fight, they got to claw to get in, and they could be playing their best baseball recently if they do end up making it in. So
Yeah.
it's such an interesting team. I love talking about the Brewers. Do you have anything else on them you want to bring up?
Um, no, I don't think so. I feel like we covered pretty much everything that I had thought about. Um, yeah. I mean, we talked good pitching. Again, yeah, I think like as a fan, the hope if we can get Yelich, Churio, and Contreras just firing up, I think that would make the season very exciting. And again, like it's also important to remember Yelich was out for most of last season. Like
Yes, that is
kind
true.
of forget that too. Like if we're talking about like plucky baseball that gets into the playoffs. Like we didn't really have Yelich for most of the end of that season. So I don't know. I think if he goes solid and we get Churio Contreras showing up again, like you were saying, like then that creates a conversation. Do we need a power bat? So it's just it's tough, and it might be like hard to make a decision on that at the deadline because you might see those guys fire up after that. But
Yeah.
no, I think we covered pretty much everything. It'll be interesting, but for what it's worth, there's still fun baseball to watch. Whether we're 5 games up or 3.5 games back, like I think the Brewers and this just the way that they play kind of like gives off underdog vibes, even when we're literally winning the division. So
Oh,
I
100%.
think them being chasing is kind of a fun position to have them in the season, just because that's kind of I feel like the MO of the team is just kind of that attitude towards everything. So, playing from 3 games back kind of matches with the way that they play, I feel like. So, yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Joining me.
hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. I think we'll have to get an episode with the three of us all on at some point. I think
For
that'd be a lot
sure.
of fun. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a little bit of a different episode, kind of talking about one team. That's a little different from what me and Parker have been doing. But if you guys want to see more of that, let us know, and we'd love to keep doing that. Especially, with Kevin and the Brewers. I think that's awesome that we get to talk about his team and kind of talk about all the ins and outs of them, which is after today's episode, I'm sure you guys all know that there is a lot. But yeah, if you guys want more Loosey Groovy baseball content, follow us on all of our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's all the same at Loosey Groovy Baseball Show. Kevin, thank you so much again for joining us this week. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Later.